It's 9 o'clock and they'll be serving lunch shortly, so we thought we should get going. I'm Dennis Doty, the chair of the Caucus of Producers, Writers, and Directors, and I want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for being here with us this morning for this panel, Programming and Monetizing for the Digital Age. Particularly thanks to our colleagues and friends at NATPE, and particularly Rick Feldman, who with his folks helped work to mount this panel and is serving as the moderator for today. Also, our event chair, Albert Fisher, and co-chair, Sid Vintage, for helping put this all together. Always thanks to Chuck Fries, who keeps this thing on the rails day in and day out, our organization, the Caucus, and Penny Rieger, who is in the engine room making sure that none of us fall off. So to get things going, we have a number of introductions. Let me introduce our chairman of our events committee, Mr. Albert Fisher.
Thank you, Dennis. One of the missions for the Caucus for Producers, Writers, and Directors is to maintain an open and meaningful dialogue among working professional creatives. One of the ways we do this is to present events on an ongoing basis, such as this morning's breakfast panel. The Caucus is proud of our association with NATPE and the National Association of Television Program Executives for this and a number of previous panels. Rick Feldman and his team, including Jordan Ryder, who's been terrific on this, are not just supporters of the Caucus, but friends of the Caucus as well. In the past, the Caucus has been one of the first industry organizations to explore such diverse topics as the exploding reality television marketplace, the advent of 3D television, the often controversial confluence of politics and entertainment. And this morning, we hope to shed some light on programming and monetizing for the digital age. In the early fall, we will present our annual new season preview with top network programming executives giving their take on the 2010-2011 television season. And later in the year, we will get down and dirty with what Nikki Fink calls the worst year in a decade for women writers and showrunners. This lively panel will include a stellar lineup of female leaders, including the always controversial avant-garde Guerrilla Girls. So I invite all of you who are not members of the Caucus to pick up membership packets before you leave today and join us for these and all of the Caucus activities. Now on to today's session. To tell us about our panelists is Sid Vintage. I emailed Sid yesterday to ask him how I should introduce him, and he emailed me back. And this is a direct quote, "I am your young, aggressive assistant." Well, let me say that if Sid is young, he's crammed a hell of a lot of experience in a few years.
You're through.
But Sid must be young to have crammed so much into such a short period of time. With All-American Television, Fremantle. Along the way, he's been executive producer of shows like Wordplay, the American Video Awards, America's Top 10 with Casey Kasem, the Baywatch, and most recently, The Price is Right. So I'm proud to have Sid as my co-chair on the Caucus Events Committee, and he will introduce our moderator and the panel. So as they say on The Price is Right, Sid Vintage, come on down.
Thank you, Albert. You just proved that I'm not that young. I'm going to introduce what I think is a really special panel, and I think we're all going to learn a lot this morning. Starting on your right will be Chris Williams. And Chris is with Disney, and he runs the T180 Studios, which are involved with participatory entertainment and do shows like My Alibi and The Electric Spoofalo. So we'll learn what those are. Chris was with Yahoo for quite a while, and he also started his own company called My Two Sentences some time ago, and he's produced features, and he went to Boston University. The next on the panel will be Jared, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tobin, is that correct? Good. And Jared is with Reveille, and we know Reveille because they produce things like Ugly Betty and The Office, but he also does shows for the web, NBC's Breakthrough with Tony Robbins and MTV's The Buried Life. He's been the EP on 13 online branded series with advertisers such as Microsoft, Kraft, Toyota, etc. And he earlier was a producer on The Amazing Race, and he went to Princeton. Next up will be Jonathan Small. And Jonathan is with Break Media, and he runs the Creative Lab with Break Media, which appeals to 100 million men per month. Amazing. And they're basically, I think, 18 to 34-year-old men, such as myself. He previously was with the publication Stuff and Glamour, and he wrote The Best Place to Kiss in Southern California, which I think is worthy of a panel all on its own. And finally, we have Lynn Day, and Lynn is with Alloy Digital, and they attract 50 million millennials per month, I think. His web programs like Gossip Girl, Vampire Diaries, and Private. And he also started his own company back in '99 called Kiwi Box. And Lynn went to Carnegie. And now our moderator, someone all of us know and we're very fond of because he's been in a major figure in our business for many years. He was with, I ran KCOP here for ages, it seemed, and then he went to USA and ran their broadcasting operation, and he's been doing a great job in a very tough environment, running NATPE for the past 7 years, I believe it is. Rick Feldman.
Gentlemen, take your spots, and while everybody's going up there, first let me thank the caucus, and not everybody individually, but thanks to the caucus, thanks to the NATPE staff and Jordan for putting everything together. Before we begin, I want to do a little promo for the NATPE LA TV Festival, which is going to be here in Los Angeles in July. A little board here. Hopefully it gets picked up by the camera for all you people in streaming land. We're going to open this up with a couple of questions, and then I would like to try to get as much audience participation as I possibly can. And that also means that we will take text questions from people out there in Streamland. So as you find something that these guys say that you want to challenge, or you don't understand, or you want them to embellish, or you think they're full of shit, you should tell them because they're very ready, willing, and able to defend themselves. And we're looking forward to maybe mixing it up a little bit. We appreciate it very much. Thank you guys for coming. And I think the first thing we should all do is to have each one of you just give a couple of minutes to tell everybody, we know a lot of what you do from your bio, but day to day, how do you see yourself and how do you divide your time, and what are the major responsibilities that you spend most of your time on? So we'll start here with Lynn.
Oh boy, okay. So, Alloy Media is a company that, targets youth consumers and connects advertisers and brands with that consumer. So from a content creation point, we have a rich history of content dating all the way back to Sweet Valley High. So, the most recent major content you guys have heard of is probably Gossip Girl, Vampire Diaries, Sisterhood of Traveling Pants. So we create these original IPs, and traditionally we partner up with major television and movie studios to produce them. So my job really is to take more of these IPs and create digital projects with them. Through our digital network, we would reach 50 million millennials and another 50 million kind of 18 to 34 demo. So to have that direct connection with our audience is to think about how do we take our amazing content IP and create projects that reach them directly.
Okay. Gentlemen, move the mics closer to you so that when you're speaking right into the mic. So hopefully, as these guys give you a little introduction, you write a couple of things down so that if you want to have them embellish upon them, they can, in terms of what Lynn does with his intellectual property and how he acquires it and how he monetizes that. We'll obviously talk about that over the next 45 minutes. John?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan Small. I'll tell you a little bit about Break Media. Break Media is an entertainment destination online for guys 18 to 34 years old. We reach, as was stated earlier, 100 million guys through all our sites and our network. We have 9 Break-owned sites, including our biggest, which is Break.com, which is a video site. My job is to oversee the editorial content on Break, but to also run the Creative Lab, which is our in-house production unit. which creates original series, branded content, funny one-offs for our clients and for our users. So that is pretty much what I do in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Jared Tobman. I run unscripted, so reality production at Reveille, and also all of our digital production. Reveille's best known for shows like The Office and Ugly Betty and The Biggest Loser, so we're basically creators of intellectual property. We also have a distribution arm internationally, so we exploit opportunities with our own IP and with the IP of others to sell it internationally, and then also to look for formats internationally that we can produce domestically. Day to day, I sort of put out fires in all of our unscripted production business. We have usually 4 or 5 shows in production at any given time. And then on the digital side, I sort of have a more soup to nuts role whereby I'm involved in helping to create, sell, produce, and ultimately work with the distributors of original branded entertainment. So essentially we create content for MSN or for Yahoo. They're the distributors, the way that networks distribute our television content. And all the content we produce online to date has been funded by a brand. So they come in very early, we sell them an idea that they like, the distribution is in place, and then we create custom content for that brand that is also content that we think is worth viewing.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris Williams. I run T180 Studios at the Walt Disney Company. Essentially, we've launched a new online network for teens, a digital network with various outposts, including a main site, YouTube channel, etc. We produce original programming for that audience. That's a big part of what we do, grow that audience. And then the other thing we do, and since being acquired by the Walt Disney Company, it actually feels like I've been on a 1.5-year internal roadshow evangelizing digital. And I have a lot of talented people who really handle the day-to-day video production, distribution deals, sales, all of that stuff. And then the other thing we do is really do offer up our services to other parts of the company at the Walt Disney Company. So we'll produce things that actually go on Disney.com. And we're very focused on what we call participatory entertainment, which really means how do we get the audience involved in the actual programming by lots of different ways, but it could be submitting different ideas and things that actually end up embodied in this broadcast quality, professionally produced programming that's ultimately distributed online.
So, Chris, you started sort of as a fresh-faced kid about 15 years ago at Yahoo, and you just also said, maybe 18 years ago. Okay, look around the room; you won't feel old. But as you said, you've been proselytizing for digital, and many of us who have been around for a long time really, I think we have sometimes definitional difficulties in terms of, if you're proselytizing for digital, now that broadcast television is digital, basically everything is digital. So there's questions these days of what's digital, what's not digital, what in fact is television, and what's just content, and where does television start and end. And I was just wondering, going back to your days at Yahoo, sitting in those meetings, for 5 years and thinking about where the world was going to be, what sort of most surprises you about what you thought was sort of going to happen and where your place is now and what has actually happened? Where did you think you guessed right and where you think you were all wrong?
Great question. Well, certainly I was very young when I started at Yahoo. I was 23. I was the second employee in New York, one of the first 100 employees of the entire company. So it was a very early stage, and certainly both culturally and from what we were doing, it was super, super early. This was back in '96. I think the biggest surprise is how video really ended up dominating or is likely to dominate kind of the web experience over text. And so some mistakes I think that I made as I left Yahoo and became more of an entrepreneur, starting my own things, was having a bit of a focus on text-based web-oriented services and entertainment. I was fortunate in that I was able to transition quickly to video, and being a media junkie kind of my whole life, it didn't really matter what the screen was. My degree's in broadcast and film. I've always kind of been obsessed with that, and I had the good fortune to produce a bunch of feature films, largely for Lionsgate during my period between Yahoo and actually starting something, the new digital entertainment studio that was acquired by Disney. And so I think where video is going in terms of how digitally it's distributed is big. And I also look at, you ask some great questions. I think what is television is one of these questions I've been asking for the last 5 years. And I think for me, what it means, and this is generally speaking, obviously means a lot of things, it's really about the format, right? We know it's not about the screen anymore, that's just a monitor. And so for me, it means 22 minutes or 44 minutes ad-supported. And so from that perspective, I think that there's a lot of new types of content that can be distributed across multiple platforms that really isn't necessarily television. It's just, it's compelling entertainment video content, and it's distributed widely throughout devices. I have an Apple TV, I get YouTube on my Apple TV, and it's in 1080p, beautiful high def, but it's a different type of content. It's short form, a lot of it's non-serialized, but I can spend hours surfing that stuff. So I feel like that's a big transition that's coming, is the really shaking up of the formats that we consume on multiple platforms.
Thank you. Let me just remind everybody, I won't feel that you're treating me badly if you talk to the audience and not to me, so don't worry about it. And remember, any of you, if you have a question at any point in time, raise your hand, and I'll bring you into the conversation in a moment. Anybody else want to comment on this, just in terms of where you were 5 or 10 years ago and where you are now, and what you think?
I was surprised how quickly the internet has pretty much destroyed the industry that I used to be in, which was the publishing industry. I come from a background of magazine editors. Maxim, when I was at Maxim Magazine, was like the hottest men's magazine in the world. And now Maxim is, we just heard it, is, in a lot of trouble, and companies like Break are really stepping in. And I think what's happened is the internet really offers an immediate experience for men now. They don't, in the old days, I have a 3 or 4 month lead time on my stories. I'd have to file stories, 4 months before the issue would even come out. Now I can post a video, within seconds of receiving it, give it to our audience. And so I think that immediacy, that immediate experience for users has been so revolutionary with the internet that it's really transformed. And it'd be interesting to see now what happens. That's the publishing. Now what is going to happen in the television world as well, and we're sort of seeing some changes as well.
Yeah, what's surprising for me was just the generational difference between the perception of different media platforms. We spend a lot of time looking at the kind of the 16 to 24 demo, which is our sweet spot. That research are showing that 77% of them, I just read something like 77% of them would rather live without a TV than without an internet, because they can get everything they want on the internet. So that's really powerful for preparing for what we're the type of content we're gonna produce for the next 5 to 10 years.
I'm actually surprised at how slowly things change. TiVo came out, 6, 7 years ago. It started, I guess, to reach some form of early adopter critical mass, and I thought it was the end of the 30-second spot within a year. I stopped watching 30-second spots the day I got my TiVo. I think it's surprising that people still continue to watch 30-second spots when they're watching live television, even when they have TiVos. A lot of research has shown now that people actually don't even use the ad skipping features more than they thought. So I think that technology gets adopted much more slowly than we think it will in our business, and I think there's sort of a graveyard full of companies that were so excited by technological developments, by the potential of the future, that they put sort of a big investment into doing something that people just weren't ready to adopt yet. And I think that there's a lot of resistance from legacy businesses that are still making a lot of money the way they have been for many years, and want to continue to milk that for as long as they can. Ad agencies, I think, still make a good amount of money from 30-second spots and aren't willing to declare that business dead, even though I think that there's still way too much money spent on that and way too little spent on digital.
I like to think of it as the oil industry. Seriously, that I think there's a big analogy there that that the traditional infrastructure for the ad industry with these 30-second spots is huge, and so and it scales. It's like a huge, scalable, monstrous business, and there's no replacement for it. And so I just think that the infrastructure of ad agencies, television network, there's so much invested in it from a jobs perspective and from a money perspective that headwind, definitely has a big effect on how things are adopted and how things will change. And I like to look at, social media and things like that as more like green energy, in the context of, all the big traditional ad agencies. They'll say they have a social media discipline and they have a little group about social media, but at the end, are they really invested in seeing things like that grow? Probably not. The same way an oil company might have a little green section. So I really think a lot of that has to change, and it will over time. And I think it takes a long time for these things to hit tipping points, but once they do, it always happens slower than we think to get to the tipping point, but when we hit the tipping point, things happen faster than we expect.
And it is changing. I mean, I don't want to give the impression here that we wouldn't all be sitting here if we weren't able to monetize what we do. And I think, just as a comparison, I mean, we did branded content, which is our form of advertising, one way we make revenue at Break. It was 60 videos last year for advertisers. This year we're on par to 120 videos. So we are seeing more and more clients. We're seeing more and more revenue streams.
Question.
Yeah, thank you. I want to follow up on the ad agency model. I've pitched a number of times to some large Fortune 500 companies regarding their involvement and websites and content on their websites. And invariably, we're dealing with people who really don't quite get the web. They already have a website, but they don't get it. And then it is sent over to JWT or whatever ad agency. And almost all the time, that's where it dies because they think we're trying to take money from them. So they don't get it. The corporations often don't get it. And in the meantime, the content that they put on has really nothing to do with their customers or consumers or fans or whatever. How are you getting around that, or what's the playing field that you see? Because ultimately, if the ad agencies don't get it and the corporations don't get it, then they will be the oil companies.
I personally think that going straight to the marketer is always your best bet. I think avoiding the traditional agencies is
We try. I try.
I know, and it can be really challenging, and certainly you get directed there a lot, and that's why they're there. But for many of them, they're just not that. They're more incentivized to see those things die than they are to see them flourish. And I think that, really for us at least, getting around that is mostly going direct to client. However, I'm sure John has a better answer because he does so much of this stuff.
Well, we do so much the agencies work with us. There's digital divisions of the agencies. I don't know what companies you're working with at this point. I guess they may be a little slow to the track here, but
Slow only begins to.
yeah, only depends. So I guess maybe you would say some of the forward thinking. I mean, AT&T Mobile advertises with us. Captain
Yeah, but
Morgan.
John, isn't it rooted in, right? Look, for a traditional agency, particularly a media agency, it's all about a spreadsheet. You got to remember who you're selling to. You're selling to a 23-year-old media buyer, okay? And so Break has invested all of this money, as has Alloy, in creating this monstrous network, right? And what that means is an ad network. And the ad network means that there's all these websites that have pages that Break has the rights to stick ads on. And what they do is they go in and they give the content for free and they support it with big ad buys, right? I mean, isn't that Alloy does that too, right?
Sponsorship is a major model for us because, think about just the consumer behavior. Like average 20-year-old today, when they were 7, they started using instant messenger. When they were 8, they learned how to share files on Napster. So, to get them to pay for content is incredibly hard. So, we partner up with major sponsors to launch these branded entertainment program as we Break. So, we actually we worked with the client and their agencies. So, the agency need to feel like they're included and not cut out. So,
I think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Keep going.
You have to follow the money ultimately, and all the agencies have digital divisions, but it depends on where that digital division sits within the hierarchy of the media planning and whether money has been actually allocated to digital for that fiscal year by the brand. And if so, then they'll be open to hearing ideas because they got to spend that money and they got to do it in the best way possible. But if it's a branded entertainment division that doesn't have any real funding, that isn't in the flow of the money, but they want to legitimize themselves and make some deals happen and are going to sort of get you to run around after some RFPs that are just fishing expeditions and don't actually have real allocated media dollars behind them, then you're going to waste your time. So it's hard to know who really has money and who doesn't. And for us, the success has been working with ad sales teams at the likes of MSN who are trained as bloodhounds to know when there's something real that's on the table and something real to pursue and not waste your time on stuff that isn't real yet.
sorry.
Are we talking about two functions of advertisers? One is media buyers, and the other branded entertainment, where you go to them and create programs which are around
The theme.
their products? And could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I'll just give you an example of something. So what happens is the agency comes to us and asks, in our case, asks Break to produce content that amplifies some sort of theme or message that they're trying to get across. And the reason they have us create the content rather than the agency create the content is because we position ourselves as a company that knows men 18 to 34. We have a lot of users. We know what our guys like. We know how to create content that our guys like. So recently, we acquired HBO Lab, which was their digital division. We brought in a whole internal production company so that we could create quality, cost-efficient content for clients. So somebody like AT&T will come to us. They came to us recently and said, we have this campaign called Life Without Mobile. And the idea is we want to imagine what life would be without a mobile phone. For one day, what would a life be like? So we create a series of 4 videos showing a guy in different scenarios without a mobile phone, being on a date, and she says, I'm going to have another glass of wine. He doesn't know whether he has enough money in his bank account, and he doesn't have a phone to check it, so he's got to run across the country to find an ATM. And it was funny. It appealed to our audience, and it's just an example of the way we make content that appealed, that is getting the message across that our sponsors want, but at the same time that our users might laugh at. And that video got over 1 million views. That whole series got over 1 million.
Don't you guarantee those views as part of the deal too?
It's different with each client. So I'm not on the ad side, but there's certain, and they have different requirements of things that you need to fulfill, but different metrics that they use.
Yeah, I mean, we approach it from 2 different directions. So there's one that's very RFP driven. I mean, going back to the tipping point, I really feel like 2010 is the year. I mean, just the amount of activities that's surrounding video that's happening right now that we're seeing directly. I mean, our video business is going through hyper growth right now. So the fact that every major RFP that comes in wants a video component, right? So a brand will ask for a specific concept to be built around them. That's one approach that we're just doing so much more projects like that this year, and also just branded entertainment based on existing IPs. So we'll take existing IP. LG just sponsored the 2nd season of a show we do called Hot and Bothered, and it's kind of Gossip Girl-like dramas that set place in a Manhattan fashion school. So they did it last year, great results, 150 million media, 185 pieces of press impression, 9 million video views. The click-throughs are double the amount of our regular campaign. So the 2nd season is airing right now, and then we have 3 more of these projects that's just greenlit, and this is all major $1 million, $2 million level projects. So we take existing IPs and we go to brands and say, you should build something around this, or we take RFPs and create kind of custom content and video series around that. So, and both we're seeing huge growth. So, going back to, I think 2010 might just be the year where everything started to.
All right, I'll be the contrarian. Because I don't do a lot of branded entertainment. And the truth is that my big problem with branded entertainment is that it doesn't scale, right? The beauty of, it's a lot different when you look back to the birth of television. You had 3 networks programming 72 hours of programming in the world a day, right? Much easier to think about taking 6 months to 12 months or however long it takes to negotiate and come up with creative for some sort of integrated brand experience on an entertainment program versus the scalable model of sticking a 30-second piece of content that you produce and that can run over any piece of content anywhere in the world to, 1 billion people. And just that for me, I don't, it's not that it's not a good launching pad potentially for this industry, but I think that branded entertainment ultimately will die. And it also has to do with the fact that you have a bunch of advertising executives who want to be TV producers. And I think that the second you get into that zone, you're in a really bad place because they are not producers.
So Jared, he just said branded entertainment is going to die. So do you want to challenge that comment?
They've done, by the way, Jared's done a really good job.
To be dead in 2002.
No, but reality is a type of programming. It's not. It scales. You produce it once, and it gets seen by a gazillion people.
I think
it'll
evolve.
Entertainment is just entertainment that is funded by a brand directly. So,
is every deal the same? Is there a standard insertion order? Do you ever see a world where there's a standard insertion order?
Yeah, I mean, the MSN templates that we do are pretty much well in place, and there are guarantees against it, and there are revenue goals to meet against it, and there are deliveries to meet against it. So it is becoming a stable and profitable business for us. I don't think it scales necessarily the way some other businesses scale, but I don't think it's going away. It's definitely a significant piece of our digital business, and we think there are many other opportunities in digital as well. But it is not going away. There is no way.
And it's
just
going to
based on
evolve.
what we're seeing, based on the amount of interest that we're getting in doing this stuff, based on the success of the programs we've had to date, and the fact that they come back for future cycles of the stuff, which we weren't seeing 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was all tied to a specific 6 to 9 month ad flight, and once that campaign was done, they weren't interested in renewing the thing. Now they're interested in renewing it because they realize they're actually building equity in brand equity around content that they can sponsor year to year.
What do you think the size of the business is? Overall, brand entertainment online, what do we think the size of the business is?
I mean, Carol Bartz said they wanted to do sort of 3x original content this year, and that was a $100 million business for Yahoo. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but look, I don't know the bottom line of the numbers, but I know that we're seeing...
But that's not branded entertainment. They do like prime time and no time, and then they have ads that go in front of it, and that's what you meant.
Sort of define brand entertainment, because I mean,
and that's a scalable business model, pre-rolls in front of your prime time and no time.
And by the way, we do that now. So I mean, I think we all, I mean, all our companies probably have a lot of different strategies of, we have pre-roll, we have interstitials, we have a million different ways that people can...
Just shaking it up.
No.
Entertainment might die. I have no
We have a question from the audience. Okay, I'm sorry, John.
Go ahead.
So in the spirit of shaking it up, if you think branded entertainment is going away, then that's almost like saying commercials on TV are going to go away, because if you look towards the future with internet-enabled TVs, a lot of the internet-branded content we're producing with the mindset that it someday might be expanded into 20 to 25-minute branded entertainment webisodes that will appear on our television. So I guess it comes back to how you define branded.
Well, that's it. I mean, how do you define brand entertainment? You're talking about self-contained, 3-part, like we did for AT&T Mobile. Maybe I can understand maybe that you wouldn't see that as a scalable model, but we also are working on series now, which will go on hopefully forever. So we have a show, for example, called The Bro Show. That was a show that we just created because we thought our users would like it, and it's just basically pitting two bros, two kind of loser guys, the bros, in awkward situations. We put them we took them to an LA Kings practice facility and had a guy shoot slap shots at them, and they wore a goalie uniform, and we sort of showed what that would feel like, and kind of felt their pain. And so that's a show we're bringing to market.
That's entertainment. That's
right.
not branded entertainment.
But the thing is, if there's a sponsor and I can't tell you who, but somebody's sponsoring the first episode, and their brand is integrated into the episode very prominently. So to me, that's like a fine line. That's entertainment, but there's some brand involvement. So there's a lot of different ways to do brand.
I like that model much better, by the way.
Okay.
I do. I think that because if you're
maybe
producing
that's where it's
entertainment
evolving.
and you have platforms within that entertainment that are very conducive to brands showing up, I don't know that that's bad. I mean, I look at something like Celebrity Apprentice, and the reason it's still on the air is because it's so conducive to ad dollars flowing into it, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that is sort of different, I think, than custom programming around the themes of a brand, driven as a collaboration between an ad agency and a producer.
All right, hold on. Vin, there's a question right behind you, and then I'll get to you.
Don't we have a historic model if we look at television, things like Texaco Star Theater Presents, and if we look at the history of television, I mean, can you guys speak to how that...
72 hours of programming versus infinite.
That's the difference?
I mean, there's a reason it went away, because the 30-second commercial was so much better to scale across massive amounts of programming.
Well, I mean, I think the analogy is great. I mean, I was just about to say that just because right now, it's $1.5 billion of online video money versus $70 billion of TV money. The brands that have, as much as we love to say, wow, I mean, the companies sitting up here actually have real budget to produce these web series. It's paltry compared to an episode of Gossip Girl, right? It's $3 million for an episode of Gossip Girl. My biggest show, we're spending maybe $1 million. And that's supposed to be cut into 20-part webisode and air over how many months. So the fact that the brands that have that kind of money out of their media budget are very few. I mean, we're talking about, we can count like 20 brands that would do that. And when they do that, I mean, this is early stage. This is like the first year in the tipping point in my view. So, I mean, the 20 brands that want to do that, they want to own everything around that content. They want to have the testicle theater kind of experience. But that's going to change. I mean, long-term wise, definitely, it's about an audience. It's about just sustainable and scalability. So, I mean, we're very aware of that. We're going to launch Alloy TV platform, which we soft launched, and in July we're going to fully launch that. And it's all about just creating content that's connected with the consumer and build the audience and sustain that.
And that's the most important thing. And I think we sometimes forget that as we struggle with business models. We forget that it's about creating real value for audiences. What are they actually watching? What do they actually want to watch? And I just think it's really important when you look at the landscape of digital, particularly the young audiences, for example, that we play with, meaning Alloy and Take 180/Disney. It's important to remember that you got to look at platforms like YouTube, which is generating, there's lots of different numbers. Let's say 5 billion video views a month of this short form content. Where the #1 show right now on YouTube is a show called The Annoying Orange. And most of you have probably never heard of it, but 52 million people watched it last month. 52 million people. And so I feel like when we start to understand what people are really consuming, what they're really watching, then we can start, really putting models to work against those audiences. So that guy who does that show, Annoying Orange, he's wildly profitable. That show probably cost $1,500 a month to make, and he's probably generating $1 million a month just off of his YouTube ad revenue partnership. And so I think when we start to, $1 million a year just off of his YouTube partnership, his ad rep partnership. So I just think it's important to start looking at what people are really consuming, what they really want to consume, and focus on that.
I think that for me, branded entertainment is not one thing in a box, just like agencies are not monolithic, nor are brands. We've worked with agencies that totally get it, and we've created content that would live on television and be successful on television. It is still a very niche play because the advertisers in general are looking to target online a specific niche. But as eyeballs move towards the web, and as ad money then flows to the web chasing those eyeballs, you will see broader plays, you will see more money being spent on original content, and it will be branded content because it will be sponsored by a brand. They will get in ahead and pay for it knowing that there are some associations, there are some attributes to the content that reflect well on them. And that's just a slightly earlier stage than coming in once the show has been created and spending money against it at the upfronts. So just because it's branded entertainment, it doesn't mean that it's bad to watch, and it doesn't mean it's hitting you over the head with advertising. We have created content that I am very proud of as standalone quality content that could air anywhere.
Sid? Vin?
This is good. In this ever-swirling storm of change that we're going through all the time, what advice or what directions would you guys in your areas give to graduating seniors or newly graduated graduate students of career directions to take to focus themselves on what you guys do?
Well, go. You're probably most qualified.
I just tell them, aspire to be Vin DeBona. But other than that,
be a master of many different crafts. I mean, the people who work for us now, the younger generation, they can edit, they can shoot, they can write, they can act. I mean, if they can do all, that's great. If they can do 2 of the 4, I'm happy. But I think know how to do a lot of different things well is one advice that I would give to anybody starting out, certainly in our industry. Also, establish a presence for yourself, sort of a brand for your own self through social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Create a sort of, a brand of yourself. There's all these ways you can do it that you couldn't do it 10 years ago. You couldn't have a YouTube channel. You couldn't have a Twitter account. You couldn't have a Facebook presence. And that is very appealing to me as somebody hiring. If somebody sort of has a following, has a sort of a cachet, you don't necessarily have to have a big deal with a studio now or something to be recognized. You could have, like you're saying, this Angry Orange is a good example of this is a guy who just makes, and I've actually seen it, who basically has a mouth moving on an orange. I mean, that's what he did. It's well written and so
creative.
It's Very creative.
Lynn?
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I actually said this to somebody last night. I'm gonna steal a line from Eric Schmidt from Google. That is, the best advice is get out of the weeds and go where the hyper growth is. So, I mean, you have to just attach yourself to a company that's going through hyper growth in the industry. I mean, right now, online video is tremendous. That will not replace the TV industry, but that would be a significant part of the TV, video, and people entertainment experience going. So go out west, go east, wherever you need to be, but don't attach yourself to a traditional media company anymore. So go with a nimble young company that can really grow.
Well, then we have that young lady, the one right behind you. Go first.
So, three quick things. I'd love to throw out the term advertiser-funded content as opposed to branded entertainment as the catch-all, because branded entertainment is pretty specific as far as integration, but if you use the term advertiser-funded content, then you're actually to incorporate pre-roll, post-roll, et cetera. So that's just a thought. My two questions are, I'd love for you guys to go into a little bit more detail about the interplay in the deals between distribution and brands and content. Because once you've made your branded entertainment, if it is integrated, you still need to get the eyeballs for it. So I'm curious about the deals that happen with distributors and the brands, who's funding those paid views versus the earns that you get for those. And then the second question is actually, you brought it up briefly before, about who actually owns the IP. If you could go into some more detail about when a brand comes in, is it your production company who owns the IP? Is it the brand? Do they want an ownership stake, or are they really just more concerned about what licensing rights they have to split it in different areas? Who ultimately owns it? Is it the writer, or the brand gets to own it?
Great questions. I can cross them off my list.
I'll just talk about the network model really, really fast. I don't think everybody knows how this works in terms of, and I think actually these guys have done it really well because they have either big partnerships like with MSN or Yahoo that creates what I would refer to as high-value distribution through a player where you actually watch, where someone is choosing to watch something and they watch it, versus what a lot of companies do is they take ad real estate on web pages. So you go to web pages, you see that little box in the corner, it's got an ad. A lot of those ads now play video, and so when you hear someone talk about a piece of branded entertainment or something getting a certain amount of views, it's usually a makeup of some of them have been forced at people through this real estate on the page, and some of it has come kind of authentically through a player environment. And so it's kind of a mix of those two things, and one has obviously really high value when somebody chooses to watch something, and one kind of has lesser value when it's being kind of forced at them and they just have to figure out how to get away from the page fast.
I mean, there's no one model that works for everybody now, right? So it's very early stage. For what works for us is, we're taking media dollars and we're building brand entertainment around them. So at the end of the day, you had to back out to a CPM. So part of the budget we will dedicate to production, and part of the budget will be media driving views to these shows that we create. And how we distribute them is we partner up with using kind of Web 2.0, Web 3.0, whatever it is, to partner up with the major kind of social networks and partner up with virtual worlds. That's in our the Alloy Digital Network. So we create environments where they can actually view these content. So in one of the virtual worlds, we'll build a theater section, and there'll be the series we're playing every Monday, a new episode will air, and then virtual world will use different editorial drivers that drive people to view that content within that theater and interact with each other. Their avatars actually go sit in the theater and watch that, and we drive millions of views that way. But at the end of the day, all the views and all the media around it had to back out to a acceptable CPM for us to kind of sell through that campaign to a brand.
We have, right here.
Hi there. So you guys have talked about how Disney is going to make money online and how Break's going to make money online. But a lot of people in this room are producers. We're producing the content that we're hoping to put on Break or put on Disney. So, if you've got like $1 million to make 20 webisodes, as a producer, how am I making any money? If I want to create a piece of content, bring it to you, and be able to pay my rent, how do I ever do that?
I don't think the market. I'll be honest. I don't think the market's there yet for you to put $1 million into a web series. The only way you can put $1 million into a web series is if you're Break or Alloy and or Reveille, and you have access to advertisers who are going to fund it up front. What I think is that it's so ingrained in people's heads that in this industry, that they need that distribution to create distribution, that when I point to who's making money on the web, the truth is it's not the Disneys. I mean, it's not the major traditional media companies. They're not making a lot of money online. Who is making money relative to production costs are these YouTube celebrities.
The guy writing is a guy putting a face on an orange, putting it on YouTube.
That's right. But it's a well-written, well-produced show. Just because it costs $1,500 to make an episode doesn't mean it's bad.
I think it's a good question because I don't know if he's making a lot of money. I think
he is. He's making at least $100,000 a month off of his YouTube ad
That's
share
a pretty
alone.
rare.
No, it's not.
How
the
many?
top
No,
50
the top 10
channels
guys
Top 10 guys
are making
100, 150 a month.
significant dollars, and then
Thousand.
you extend that to some of these networks that are probably on the precipice of making good money, like Next New Networks that runs Barely Political, or Machinima is a great example of an online network that is probably making a tremendous amount of money at the moment because they have an endemic advertiser as well. It's built around.
When you say there are top 50 channels, there are 50 channels that are actually all doing well.
Does anyone here know who Ryan Higa is? Does anyone in this audience know who Ryan Higa is? All right, Ryan Higa is the #1 YouTube star in the world with over 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube. Every time he launches a video, it probably does 3 to 5 million video views, and these are authentic video views. People are choosing to watch his programming. He's making at least $1.5 million, $2 million a year just off of his YouTube channel, and these are, he's charming, and these are kind of little well-written, skit-oriented things that he does. But he's the #1 YouTube star in the world. He's seen by tens of millions of people every month, and nobody really knows who he is. And I think the world of media is kind of going in that direction, right? Cable started doing it, right, with fragmenting audiences. I don't watch Ice Truckers, but it's a huge franchise, right? And it's just going to go further that direction as content becomes more nichified. And what we have to do is we have to lower our expectations in terms of production budgets and size and scope. Disney will always be able to produce Tron and have water cooler talk, right? And really have a global franchise. But it's really going to bifurcate. Big, worldwide, small makes money.
Would you agree that at the moment those guys are the exceptions that prove the rule? That basically there's no money online for producers of content?
No, but the trend is this way. So
it's trending that way, but how do you stay alive in the meantime?
you stay in traditional media.
Well, I mean,
because there's all this ad money that still supports it. What is the television ad business? $90 billion a year?
No, it's about 60.
60 billion?
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a lot of money.
Hold on.
You suck it up and you do something for Disney Channel instead of ABC. I mean, I don't know. It's a challenging market.
And you have the tools. I mean, to your point, Vin, it's like you have the tools now to pursue your vision and your passion very inexpensively. You can create it inexpensively. You can distribute it for no cost. And you have the ability also, I'm going to think of Fred as another big YouTube star.
Yeah,
he's making a ton of money with licensing. Like going to a toy store, T-shirts up the wazoo, buttons, mugs, all that stuff you can also create yourself online with vendors that are creating it for you. So you have the ability to create an ecosystem around a property that people respond to and make a lot of money independently that way. The key is people have to respond to it.
And
so ultimately, as a creator, you have to come up with something that people respond to. But if you do, all the distribution, everything is there in place for you to monetize it in a way that you have never been able to before. You had to sell it to a TV network before, and they only had 72 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's limitless.
And by the way,
opportunities are limitless.
it's international. Let's not forget. I mean, you guys are awesome at that, right? I mean, how often are you monetizing stuff, across globally? We just did our first sale, of a series to a mobile platform in Japan called BTV, and they buy everything. I mean, they're really big buyers of online content. But it's real money. You're talking about $100,000 for a 6-month window for distribution on mobile devices. That's real money. So I think that there are models that look pretty good, in the interim. But
Hold on, we have a bunch of questions. First, so that young lady there, and then this gentleman over here after. Go ahead.
So first, how are you guys preparing for the evolution of technology into the mobile market and augmented reality and all of the upcoming anticipated technological evolutions that are going to blow our minds again?
I mean, we're Break is everywhere. We have iPhone apps. We just did HTML5. What is that? Yeah, HTML5 for the iPad. We're on the sides of buses now. We're playing in hotel rooms on your screen, TiVo. So yes, we're always looking at how to kind of, like Chris said earlier, there's not the computer screen model is already a dated model, and so we're always thinking ahead about where is our content going to live in the next 2 or 3 years. And we have people, new people keep wandering into our office with weird expertise, and the iPad, the iPod, digital this, digital boxes, et cetera. So we have strategies in all those different places.
Yeah, and it's hard actually to pick where to put. Generally we're all up here with fairly limited resources, even though we are part of bigger companies. It's still limited resources for the digital-oriented stuff. And so picking actually what you do have to place bets. I think that's, placing bets on, iPhone is probably a safe bet, but those formats are different too. You don't want to necessarily just take the same thing and put it in a different environment. You might want to change something about it to make it work on that platform. So, we've always focused on engaging audiences, because when it's the computer screen or the mobile phone, that there's an ability to have a two-way interaction that you don't really have when you sit. Even if you did have it, you probably wouldn't use it on your television, because your appointment is with your couch, not really your television. So, I think from that perspective, you got to place a couple bets and make sure that you do different types of programming for different platforms.
Okay, Dennis, we'll get to you in a second, but I had this gentleman.
Back to the branded entertainment versus viral entertainment. When you're talking about budgeting for a project, you're talking about, like, let's say a web series, a show that has that's to be broken out. It's on an hour. It's to be broken out to be shown virally or shown on the internet in 2-minute segments or whatever. And you're talking about something like The Annoying Orange. I think the problem is that, from my standpoint, we go and pitch like a viral, and they're saying, well, The Annoying Orange, they're making, let's say $1 million a year, and let's say that the show only costs $1.5K to do, and they're like, well, what can you do for $1,000? And it's like, well, I can't do anything for $1,000. I can't have a crew for $1,000. I mean, I think we're looking at the, and when you take like ice structures, I think we're looking at the murder of quality for a quick laugh. I mean, if you take YouTube and boil it down, it's just a series of people getting kicked in the nuts. Whereas you take television and it's quality entertainment, I think it seems that although TV is poor man's internet, what we're losing here is we're losing the quality of the programming. Now, is there a sample of, and maybe a break media is where quality comes in, because you guys think you do stuff, but is that the problem? Is that
well, I like to think that what we do is high quality. I mean, we are, we're using. I mean, we just did a campaign for Right Guard. I mean, this is a branded campaign, but where we used a red camera. We brought in a guy who was kind of a big commercial director. And again, a lot of people will do it, for less right now, because the money. I got to be honest with you, the money isn't quite there yet. I mean, this is what we've been talking about. The TV is still stealing all the major ad dollars. We have money. We just don't have as much as they do. But you're able to get people to work for you right now because they want that exposure. They want to say that they did an internet campaign, a web campaign, because that's kind of where a lot of people are interested right now, and they want to have that on their reel. And so we're able to work with those people. I mean, obviously I would love to pay people as much money as I could possibly pay them, because I know that I want to bring in the highest quality. So we have been producing quality. I think everybody here probably thinks that what they produce is high-end quality in television. Break started off with guys falling off bike videos, but we're evolving, and people still want to see that, and we're very cognizant of that, and that will be our bread and butter forever. But we know that we have to evolve, and we have to start creating better content. And then we've been responding in that way. So we are, we have our internal production company. As I said, we run an HBO lab. I know HBO is not too shabby an operation. And then we are part of Lionsgate, so we have that kind of quality control there. And we hire good people, not just kids out of school.
I think it's a bifurcated model for you, just so you can look at the landscape, because it is bifurcated right now. Because the stuff with higher production budgets, and we do stuff. I mean, I talk out a little bit out of both sides of my mouth, frankly. I can pay homage to The Annoying Orange, but my series are more like $7,500 to $15,000 a minute, which is not dirt cheap, right? And I have real crews and red cameras and sound stages and all that stuff. But we're fortunate in that we can take advantage for serialized programming, as you describe it, like where you might take, something that might ultimately be 100 minutes of content and can be repackaged a lot of different ways. For that type of content, it's a different type of model, right? I can take, like we have a series called I Heart Vampires. It's been very successful. It's the second season. It's broadcast quality. It's beautiful. It's a great show. We can take that. We can package it, sell it overseas to broadcast. We can package it on DVD as one whole thing, distribute it that way. The revenue streams are different versus kind of the comedic, lower-cost content that we produce that generates a high amount of views, like a tremendous amount of views online, can be ad-supported and generate revenue that way. And I think it's sort of that bifurcated model at the moment. If you want serialized, really good storytelling, great performances, drama, then you're really talking about a model that needs to take advantage of some of the traditional revenue streams that already exist out there, particularly licensing.
Like no major brand, like Coca-Cola media buyer is
That's
not
right.
going to
That's
say.
right. It's not a sponsorship.
Right. It's not going to say, I want to buy Annoying Orange.
It's
Nobody
probably a
can
$3
say that.
CPM.
If they have if a major brand, they have a choice between if we can make Gossip Girl in 5-minute segments and get 50 million views, no question, every time every brand is making a decision, they're going to buy professional generated content. So definitely still go towards generating professional content. And the question on how is a producer going to make money and pay their bills on $1 million production, I mean, that's actually kind of simple. Just make everything for $900,000. So.
Okay. We're running out of time. It's 10 o'clock. So do you want to end or you want to ask a couple more? How do you want to do this, Dennis? Sid, you want to keep going for a second or two? You have a quickie?
Yeah, you create an awful lot of specific content. And Jonathan, and you mentioned ways about how people find creating theaters or hotels, things, right, and bus ads and the like. But how does the word get out for specific shows to promote them, for people to find them? Is it coming through specific social networks or internet chatter, or how do you create an audience for new content?
Basically, you're asking how does a video become viral, right? There's many, I think if we had the magic potion, we'd all make viral videos all day. But I think, at Break, I'll give you an example. We just did a video over the weekend called We Are LeBron, which was basically a bunch of Cleveland luminaries, including the governor of Cleveland, singing to the We Are the World tune, please stay LeBron, please stay in Cleveland, right? This video, our strategy to get the word out was to, you put it on the Breaks homepage. Breaks homepage, we get 17 million people a month coming. So that's immediately people are going to see it. Get a big PR strategy. Our publicist is right here. She did a brilliant job. We put it on our Facebook. We put it on Twitter. And we put it on we had our sites. We have 9 sites that all wrote about it and talked about it. Within 7 hours, it had, I think it was like 100,000 views. Within 14 hours, it had 500,000 views. Now we're closing on 1 million views. Buzz gets out there. I mean, if you can get it on a big platform and get people to start talking about it, there's so many different ways to disseminate the information. There's the social media networks like Facebook. There's the social bookmarking sites. There's something, nobody in this room probably has ever heard of dig.com, but to us it's like a major thing to be on dig.com, which is a place where basically people submit their favorite stories to the internet, and the ones that are the most popular get on the homepage, and hundreds of thousands of people look at that homepage and look at your video. So there's lots of different ways to get the word out that your video, and that you just have to know how to mobilize.
Yeah, and it's a little different for Break because you guys own distribution to 50 million people. Right. So getting the word out isn't exactly a challenge when you have 50
right.
million people. I would say that, just to give you a little, YouTube is the #1 platform in the world for video. If you take the top 10 video sites in the world, right, the #1 is YouTube. If you add up the next 9, they make up about 20% of the views that YouTube does, including Hulu, by the way. So I think if you're really trying to launch new content independently, you have to start with YouTube, unless you can forge a partnership with one of these places like Break that has so many viewers. But YouTube is really a function of 2 types. There's partner managers who actually feature your content across YouTube. So as a partner where they share in ad revenue, they have people who have inventory, promotional inventory, same way a network would, that they can push towards your show to make it more successful. And then they also have editors who do editorial. They find what they like. And if you can have relationships with the editors, that always helps, just like it does in traditional PR. So focusing on YouTube, there's actually a lot of opportunities to create success and audience in a variety of different ways. Appeal to some of the YouTube celebrities to potentially talk about you, those types of things. But just in that environment alone, you can create hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of views.
Right. I mean, I think social marketing and social media is super important for independent producers. I mean, for us, we can reach 50 to 85 million uniques across our network before. I mean, I know $20,000 production value, that web series that's being produced for $20,000 and no money into marketing that gotten 10 million views just because the creators and the actors actively, blog and reach out on social media about it. I mean, it's amazing. So, I mean, we get 10 million views.
Okay.
So.
There's two more questions, one here and one here, but hold on one second. So these are from Streamland. So I'm going to ask each one of you this question and just give me one-word answers. So is it correct to view most internet content these days similarly to 80s style MTV programming? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Yes.
I'd say yes, too.
You'd say yes, 2 yes to this. Okay, now, what's more important, total number of viewers or the length of time viewers watch a piece of content? Viewers or time?
Both?
Both. Fair, boring answer.
2 minutes, 42 seconds.
I would, it's both. It's both.
Okay, there's both. Okay, question.
First of all, I love that LeBron video, and I was so amazed everybody sang on tune.
Thank you.
Auto-tune works really well.
It does. Talking a lot at the caucus about the possible merger of Comcast and Universal, and for those kinds of mergers that we don't even see coming just yet, how do you think that will overall affect the independent producer in the future? Or do you see this as even a problem at all?
Me? Or
I think it's bad. I mean, I think it's bad for the independent producer, but understand that to a certain extent is driven out of Comcast's fear of the future, right? And so from the perspective that content looks like it's king, I think Comcast is making a pretty big bet that the content is king because they're going out and buying NBC Universal. But I think it gives just so much pricing power to the conglomerate. I mean, with respect to the independent producer, in terms of getting pieces of the action and all that stuff, I think it's going to become increasingly more difficult.
Okay. Last question.
Actually, just to play off of that question, if you had to give it 5, 10, 15 years, when do you see that intersection between traditional media and these new media companies happening? Just from each of you, when do you see that intersection actually taking place?
look into my crystal ball.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard. I've never in my career been right on timing. I've always been early, and so it's always hard for me to gauge. It's probably 15 rather than 10 because I've been early, so I'm going to guess later.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 10 to 15 because even if the industry grows at like a 50% pace, 1.5 billion times, 1.5, 150% growth over, that's my nerdy Carnegie Mellon side coming out. It's probably going to take 10, 15 years to catch up.
So, John, in your book, what is the #1 place to kiss in Los Angeles?
Oh, in Los Angeles?
Yeah, not Southern California, Los Angeles.
Beverly Hills Hotel Sunset Room.
All right, let's thank our panel, the Caucus, NATPE, everybody in Streamland. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I know.
Okay, terrific.
I don't know. Thank you so much.
Hey, guys.